Hello and welcome back to the Locked On Oilers podcast. On today's episode, we might have some breaking news regarding the Edmonton Oilers lineup heading down to Colorado. We will get into that. Plus, if there is some potential breaking news, what does that mean for the team? We'll get into that. Plus, some predictions for this week and the series to come against the Colorado Avalanche. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to the Locked On Oilers podcast. I'm your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. What a wonderful morning it is, and a wonderful Monday morning it is. I hope you are having a wonderful day. On today's episode, we might have some breaking news regarding the Oilers lineup as they were heading down to Aspen, Colorado to face the Colorado Avalanche. And it does sound like, or Denver, I guess, not Aspen. Why did I say Aspen? I got Aspen on the mind. Denver, Colorado. And it sounds like there might be some potential COVID-related issues for the team. We will get into that in just a second. Plus, if there are some COVID-related issues, who might slot into the lineup? I think if you're an Oilers fan, you already have a little bit of a grin on your face because you might know who it is. Plus, with some predictions, it is Monday, so no game today, no game to talk about, games tomorrow. Let's talk about some predictions. So we'll get into that and so much more in today's episode of Locked On Oilers. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Oilers, and thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Plus, we're also on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, hello YouTube, how's it going? Hope you're having a great day too. Somebody who isn't having a great day is the mystery player who, as Patrick Johnston reported, who is a local beat reporter in Vancouver, who has sources around the Oilers apparently, and is also reports for the Vancouver Sun, has tweeted out that a source has messaged him saying that the Oilers had some COVID-related travel issues getting down to Colorado yesterday. Take a breath, everyone. Okay. Now, I understand that it's playoffs, and any sort of report or anything like that does kind of get into people's heads. Obviously, as of recording this right now, no names have been thrown out, and no names will probably be known until tomorrow night before puck drop on who is and who isn't going to be taking warm-ups. But also, probably we might know before practice as well, depending on who's in practice and who isn't, and also who's skating with some lines. So, what better way than to speculate what happens if there is a forward out? Hey, how about that? Let's have a little fun here and some news that might not necessarily be positive. Let's try and make some positivity, and of course, we hope whoever it does affect is okay, and the Oilers are going to be okay going down the line, and this doesn't cause too much of an issue for the rest of the league, really, the rest of the team, rest of the league. But we all know heading into the playoffs and heading into the season that Josh Archibald wasn't necessarily always going to be available for the Oilers, especially when it came to away games. Is this what that is? I have no perfect inside source or any inside source with the team right now that can confirm or deny what that is. But let's theoretically say that the issue is, and the Oilers have tried to get around this issue as they were trying to do it in LA, where they would bust down to the border crossing. I almost said quarter crossing, the border crossing, and instead of being on air, you don't have to take a COVID test or something related to COVID that the Oilers might have had issues with some of their players and some of their staff as well. So they did try and bend the rules a little bit. It is unclear as of right now if they did try to bend those rules and to see if that was the issue or see if there was maybe a positive test somewhere. It doesn't say anywhere that there was a positive test, but what the tweet does say is a COVID related travel issue. So let's just say hypothetically that it is Josh Archibald who is out of the lineup. And again, this is purely hypothetical. In no way is it speculatory on who it is. But let's have some fun with it. If there is a forward out of the lineup, who comes into play? Dylan Holloway. It's Dylan Holloway, everybody. We were talking about just how much everybody wants Dylan Holloway in the lineup. And if a forward is out, it's either down to Dylan Holloway or Devin Shore. And I really, really, really think that it's going to be Dylan Holloway who would be slotting in. It just makes the most amount of sense. It does. The guy is young. He has great feet. He can skate. I mean, we've gone over what Dylan Holloway can do. But what can he do against a team that he matches the way he plays perfectly? We talked about how perfect Calgary would have been. I mean, on top of it, he is a Calgary boy and a Battle of Alberta type boy. But his speed, his skill, his grittiness, his work rate is on top of many people that he'll be playing with. And you're going up against a team that a lot of people have. I mean, again, obviously, they were one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NHL at many points in the Colorado Avalanche this season. They're a fast team. They're a transition team. They're a team who can try and pin you in your own end. But Dylan Holloway doesn't stand for that type of game. Dylan Holloway will go in there and whatever type of game you want to play, he goes, yeah, watch this. You're not going to do it. And he's a young kid who's able to do that. So let's take a look at the lines. If it is Dylan Holloway who steps into the lineup for the Oilers, as mentioned, we talked about some potential lineups for the Oilers if Dylan Holloway does slot in, but now it's starting to look maybe potentially a little more likely. So the first two lines are going to remain relatively unchanged. Evander Kane will line up next to Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That will stay the same. The second line will be Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Jesse Puljujärvi, because, again, Jesse Puljujärvi had a great series, well, great in relative terms to how he's done for the rest of the playoffs and the stretch of this regular season as well, down the stretch as well. He had a really good series against the Calgary Flames, and we'll see if he can try and build off that. Colorado is a team that Jesse Puljujärvi played pretty decently well against when he was playing against them because he was hurt for a couple of those games, but he still did play pretty well. So I'm going to keep him on that third line or second line, excuse me. The reason why is because the major change is going to come on the third line if Dylan Holloway does slot in. The third line that I have here is Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and Kyler Yamamoto. Three guys who have obviously played in Bakersfield, who have time down there, but three guys who are very similar in their type of play. All guys who are very skillful when they need to be, very tough along the boards when they need to be, who can all play 200-foot games. And did I mention their skating yet? All guys can keep up to each other, know what they can do, even if they haven't really played much together in regards to Holloway and McLeod and Holloway and Yamamoto. They're all very similar players. They all kind of are cut from the same cloth. That's an exciting line to watch. That's an exciting line to even go up to play against, because you talk about the Oilers' layered cycle. You mean Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and Kyler Yamamoto won't love to play below the goal line and below the face-off dot and force the issue for the Colorado Avalanche defensemen? I'd say they do. I would say they would. I would be very, very excited to see that line kind of get to doing something. And then the fourth line, you bump down Warren Foegele. You don't take him out of the lineup. You keep Foegele in the lineup. He has really added something to the Oilers lineup so far since he's came back into the lineup for the Oilers, especially in that Calgary Flames series. He was all over the place. Surprised he didn't score, really. I talked so much about Warren Foegele potentially being the Fernando Pisani of these playoffs. Whoopsies, but he's still played relatively well to the minutes that he has played. He will line up next to Derek Ryan, and then I did initially put Josh Archibald here, but again, if Archibald is the one that isn't in the lineup, this is where Zach Cassian will slot in. Yikes. uh, not gonna lie, not a big fan of it. If I could get away from it, then I would, but you're not really going to. So, and again, like we said, right now, as of right now, as per Patrick Johnston from Vancouver Sun and Vancouver beat reporter, or Vancouver Canucks beat reporter, I should say, the Edmonton Oilers have had some COVID-related travel issues getting down to Colorado yesterday. Who will slot in? Who will, well, be the player that is not going to be in the lineup for the Oilers? We will find out all in due time. And once we do know, make sure you follow on to Locked On Oilers on Twitter to find out any potential news coming down the pipeline. Also coming down the pipeline, obviously the Oilers and the Avalanche have played before. They played each other throughout the season, and we've had some pretty interesting tilts between the two. So we will have a little bit of a history lesson of this season coming up in just a second. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about our partners, Bet Online. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports information. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's NHL hockey playoffs. We're still waiting to see the third round odds from Bet Online because the Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes do play tonight. So if you got some time and you want to see who the Oilers might play in the Western or in the Stanley Cup final, I should say, tune into that one. And then we'll have more Bet Online lines for the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. So make sure you tune into that. Plus, the MLB is in full swing. What a massive fist fight between, well, not fist fight. There wasn't any bench clears that I saw over the weekend, but a big game between the Toronto Blue Jays and the LA Angels. Man, I think it finished 11-10. So if you bet the over on that one, congratulations. Plus, this year's NFL futures bets are up as well. As we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, their schedule came out. So take a look at your favorite team. I'm a Chicago Bears fan, so I don't want to. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and much more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Where we're going to continue, however, was where the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche left off in the regular season, as the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche did play each other 3 times throughout the regular season. They were some barn burners, ladies and gentlemen. They were some of the best games. Honestly, genuinely, when you take a look back at the Edmonton Oilers seasons, the best games at their season, I should say, the best games that the Oilers played this season were against the Colorado Avalanche and were against the Tampa Bay Lightning. They had a difficult road trip in April and a little bit in March as well. They played very well against those two teams, but we got to make sure we got to focus on the team we have in front of us. Let's not worry about potential Stanley Cup finalists before we actually get there. Because I mean, again, I feel a little more comfortable if I can find any wood to knock on. I feel a little more comfortable from the Oilers' perspective heading into this series, because it's not the Flames. It's not exactly a team that, the Oilers played well against. It wasn't a team that the Oilers lost 9-5 to at any point. I feel a little more confident. But let's take a look back at some of the earlier games this season between the Oilers and the Avalanche. The first meeting between the two was March 21st. It was in Colorado, and the Colorado Avalanche would go on to win 3-2 in overtime. In that game, Leon Draisaitl had one assist, and Connor McDavid only had one assist as well. And also getting goals from Kyler Yamamoto in that game as well. Kyler Yamamoto, when you take a look back at these games, a pretty big name for the Oilers in those 3 games. For the Oilers to go on to, well, they win one, but to have some sort of success, Kyler Yamamoto was really in the thick of things against the Colorado Avalanche. Yes, 3-2 overtime loss to Colorado in Colorado on March 21st. On April 9th, many Oilers fans might actually remember this game. The first goal of the game wasn't scored until the third period. 2-1 shootout victory for the Colorado Avalanche in that game. It was Warren Foegele who got the scoring started for the Oilers. And that was kind of when I started going, hey, Foegele might not be too bad here. He might be. I'm back on the Foegele train here. Now I've kind of fallen off, but that's okay. That's not what this is about. Foegele getting the only goal for the Oilers in that game, and eventually it would go on to a shootout as the Colorado Avalanche win in the skills competition 2-1 in that game. And then once again later on in April 22nd, back in Edmonton, the Oilers decimated the Colorado Avalanche 6-3. In that game, Evander Kane with a hat trick, 3 goals and assists for Evander Kane. Connor McDavid with 3 assists in that game as well. Leon Draisaitl only plugging in with 1. Still, that's a slow game for Leon Draisaitl. And Kyler Yamamoto once again getting on the score sheet in that game. 1 goal and an assist for Yamo there. Now, you might have noticed you didn't really hear a lot of Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid's name. Maybe that's because in the 3 games against the Colorado Avalanche, Connor McDavid had 4 assists, which, you take a look at 3 games, 4 assists, not too bad. However, 3 of those assists came in one game. In the game where Evander Kane scored 3 goals, the Oilers scored 6 and went on to win 6-3. Of course, that's what you need if the Oilers want to win or expect to win. But, it's not exactly, in the grand scheme of a series, not exactly the best. Also, on top of that, Leon Draisaitl, 2 assists in the 3 games. Now, once again, we mentioned that the Edmonton Oilers did play some of their best games as a team against the Colorado Avalanche. So if that means that the whole team is chipping in, then guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl aren't necessarily needed for the Oilers to win a game or win that game. But sitting here and you're thinking, man, the Oilers don't need Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl to win them hockey games. We've seen in these playoffs, no, not always. You have the supporting cast of a Zach Hyman, a Kyler Yamamoto, who evidently against Colorado has put up some pretty decent numbers. You have guys like Evander Kane, who is currently 3 goals away from scoring the most amount of playoff goals scored since 2008-2009, which we'll also get into in a little bit. And he's also a couple more away from scoring the most amount of goals since 1995-96. Pretty freaking decent, if you ask me. Evander Kane also on that team for the Oilers. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has been massive for the Oilers on basically any time he's on the ice, in his own end, in the transition, on the power play, on the when they're cycling the puck. Has been fantastic. Haven't even gotten to Ryan McLeod and Kyler, we have gotten to Kyler Yamamoto. Haven't gotten to Ryan McLeod or Zach Hyman even, really, who, scored in every single game against the Calgary Flames last series. The only ever Oiler to do that. And we've had some pretty good ones. And I am all and always will be a supporter of Jesse Puljujärvi, so I think he'll always chip in whenever he can. You got 9 guys right there that the Oilers, outside of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, can go out there and produce for the Oilers. And when the Oilers are facing the Colorado Avalanche this year, it has been those guys who have stepped up to win those games. Well, they did win one, but to push it even to overtime and have success against the Colorado Avalanche. That's what the Oilers need. And that's what the Oilers are getting not only against the Colorado Avalanche, but in the playoffs too. On top of that, also in a couple of games, Evan Bouchard getting a goal as well. So Evan Bouchard chipping in. Tyson Barrie, we haven't even mentioned as well, who is an obvious offensive threat, led all defensemen. I almost said defensive defensemen. Led all defensemen in points, not this past season, but the season before. Pretty good. Darnell Nurse. Cody Cece's been able to chip in a couple times. Duncan Keith is an obvious threat sometimes when he's out there shooting the puck. And again, haven't mentioned Brett Kulak, who has been the Oilers' most consistent defenseman since he got traded here. If you're an Oilers fan, you're sitting there going into the Colorado series, you must be sitting there going, this team is better than how they were the last time these two teams played. This team is better than we thought when they were going up against Calgary in the last series. But guess what? They won 4 straight, took 2 against the Calgary Flames in their own barn, and didn't let the Calgary Flames get a sniff at home at Rogers Place. Other than that 132-foot goal, but we won't talk about that. The Edmonton Oilers are a much better team than a lot of people are giving them credit for, and they're a lot better team against the Colorado Avalanche than a lot of people are giving them credit for. In the 2 games that they lost, one was in overtime and the other one was a charity goal in a shootout that one goal went in. Again, that's what do they call them? A skills competition. Any team could have won that game. At the end of these 3 games, the Edmonton Oilers could have been 3-0-0 against the Colorado Avalanche, just based off of one bounce. And the Edmonton Oilers have been able to now not only control that one bounce, but have also been able to bounce back from that one bounce and cause the issue for a very good team. So, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I think going into this series against the Colorado Avalanche, the Edmonton Oilers have a better chance of making the next round than they did against the Calgary Flames. And they won in 5 games against the Calgary Flames. So let's move the past into the past and let's take a look at the future. Let's get into some predictions, baby, as it is Monday. The Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche play 3 times this week, once on Tuesday. Let me get the schedule up. I mentioned I have a lot of big boards to make sure that everything's accurate here for you here at Locked On Oilers. So let's take a look at the schedule. Tuesday in Colorado at 6 p.m. In fact, every game in this series, well, at least for the first 4, we won't talk about 5, 6, and 7, but at least for the first 4 games, all start at 6 p.m. Mountain. Thank goodness. Oh, we don't have to be here at 8:30 waiting for the game. Oh, it's 8:50 now. Puck is dropping. 6 o'clock. We just finished dinner. We can turn on the TV and look at that Oilers Avalanche in the Western Conference Final. What could be better? But Tuesday will be in Colorado at 6 p.m. Thursday in Colorado at 6 p.m. and Saturday in Edmonton at 6 p.m. So what are those 3 games going to look like? I have 3 predictions for you. Let me know some of your predictions as well. And let me know if you think my predictions will actually come to fruition this week. My first prediction for this week is Dylan Holloway gets a game. Yes, that one's the low-hanging fruit. As we did talk about, Patrick Johnston did tweet out that the Oilers did have some COVID-related issues, travel issues, heading down to Colorado on Sunday. So who comes out of the lineup for the Oilers? We will wait and see. But if it is a forward, I do fully expect that number 36, Dylan Holloway, will make his Edmonton Oilers NHL debut against the Colorado Avalanche in the Western Conference Finals. Dylan, what could be better? Come on, buddy. You're thrown into the fire. Let's see what you got. Dylan Holloway, I say, will get a game at some point this week. And again, if he does, I think the line will be Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and Kyler Yamamoto. That just gets me going. I can't wait to see that line if it happens. I don't want to get my hopes up too high and then it doesn't happen. Next, the second thing that I think will happen in this week, well, in the next 7 days until Saturday, I was going to say in this series, but in this week, in fact, this prediction ends on Thursday, is I think the Oilers will earn a split in Colorado between the first two games between the Oilers and the Avalanche. I think either they'll win game one or lose game two, or lose game two and win game one. I think they'll come back to Edmonton either way with the split, similar to how they did not only against the Calgary Flames, but they also had the split in Los Angeles, or against Los Angeles, as LA got the split in Edmonton, winning the first game. What is interesting, though, so far for the Oilers, whichever team who has won game one has gone on to lose this series so far in the Oilers playoffs. So if the Oilers do win game one, maybe we hold our breath a little tighter, but maybe not. Maybe that's exactly what we need. Either way, by Saturday, when game three comes around, the series will be at least 1-1 at 6 p.m. puck drop. I cross my fingers at least for 6 p.m. It'll probably again be 6:20. And the final prediction for this week's games, or these week's games, the three games up until Saturday, is that Evander Kane will score his 15th playoff goal. Now, why is that number a very important one, not only for Evander Kane, but for the NHL in general? Well, Evander Kane, if he does score 15, will score the second most amount of goals in the last 25 years in the NHL hockey playoffs. Last time somebody scored 15, and I wrote down, I have the last five guys here who have, or six guys. I'm great at math, everybody. I have the last six guys who've scored at least 14 in the playoffs since 1995, 1996. Okay, so here's the company Evander Kane will join. The last guy to score at least 14 goals was in 2020, 2021, and that was Braden Point, who the year before, he also scored 14 goals. So those two, the 5 and 6 slot, are occupied by Braden Point, who is a well-known playoff performer and somebody that a lot of guys really want on their team. Braden Point, a hell of a player. Also, after that, let me know if you recognize any of these names. Evgeny Malkin in 2008-2009 scored 14 goals. Alexander Ovechkin in 2017-2018, the year that they won the Stanley Cup, scored 15 goals for the Washington Capitals. In 2008-2009, Sidney Crosby scored 15, and if Evander Kane does eventually score, hopefully, his 16th goal, then he will sit behind the only guy who has scored more than 15 goals in the last 25 years in the playoffs. That's Joe Sakic. Yeah, you know that guy? In 1995, 1996, Joe Sakic scored 18 goals in the playoffs. Evander Kane. Do you think Evander Kane can get to 18? He's currently sitting at 12. He's currently sitting at 12. So he would need 6 more goals. Again, I have to do the math in my head. Guys, I'm not good at quick math. So if it's 5 or 6, let me know. But do you think Evander Kane can get to that 18 mark? Do you think Evander Kane, if the Oilers do make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, can score 20? We shall see. Thank you so much once again for tuning in to the Locked On Oilers podcast. And thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. For your second listen, make sure you tune in to Locked On NHL, from the first round matchups to each and every single kiss on that Stanley Cup. And it seems like the Edmonton Oilers are getting that much closer to potentially being the team that it is. Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no others. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It is free and available wherever you find your podcast, and it's on YouTube as well. And I'm also on that Locked On NHL episode as well, talking to you about talking to Gil, of course, as well, talking about how the Oilers actually made it to this point. Oil country, aren't we happy? The Edmonton Oilers play their first Western Conference final game since 2006 tomorrow night against the Colorado Avalanche. On tomorrow's episode, we will be meeting up with the Locked On Avalanche cast, and we will be talking about some of the X factors in this series, some questions going into the series for the Edmonton Oilers, and some questions going into the series for the Colorado Avalanche. All that and more on tomorrow's episode. But thank you so much for making today's episode part of your day. I hope you stay safe and have a wonderful Monday. Let's go, Oilers.